Hello students, welcome to our afternoon read aloud. So lately I've been reading lots of books to you about Johnny Appleseed, and most of the books have been biographies, right? A book about someone's life. They've been about his life. First I read you this book, then this book by Aliki, then The True Tale of Johnny Appleseed, which was a little longer with more details, and then just yesterday I read to you this cool poem about his life. This is almost 100 years old. These are more recent books, but this is a kind of a famous old poem about him that was written, I think in the 1930s, so almost 100 years ago. Today I'm going to start another biography about him, but it's really got a lot of details, so I'm just going to read half of it now and half of it tomorrow. Okay, here we go. John Chapman, The Man Who Was Johnny Appleseed by Greene. And I really love this series. They're called rookie biographies. So a rookie is someone who's like a new player on a team. So it's like these are biographies for new readers, for young students who are just starting to read biographies. And there's a bunch of them actually. So if I sneak peek the cover, I see there's some people hanging out under an apple tree. This looks like a tombstone, you know, like the stone they put where someone dies. It says Johnny Appleseed, John Chapman. He lived for others. Holy Bible, he was very religious, 1774 to 1845. And there is Johnny Appleseed planting some seeds. There's his sack with his seeds and his Bible. And there he is sitting under a tree reading a book and eating an apple. Here we go. John Chapman, The Man Who Was Johnny Appleseed by Greene, Children's Press. So right here is a portrait. So remember, a portrait is a special kind of picture. It could be a painting or a photograph that is of a person. And this is a portrait showing his face. And here are the years he was alive, 1774 to 1845. And here's a little introduction. That's like a starting part of a book. It says, John Chapman was a real person. He lived from 1774 to 1845. During his life, he planted many apple trees. That is why people call him Johnny Appleseed. Here, this is his story. And then also here I see a table of contents. That is a clue that for sure this is in an information book. And the table of contents tells us what kind of things we're going to read in the book. So chapter 1, a mystery story, starts on page 5. Chapter 2, the first trip, that starts page 13. Chapter 3, the Ohio years. Chapter 4, a strange looking old man. Chapter 5, tales and more tales. Then important dates and index. And we're going to be learning more about the parts of an information book later. Okay, so right away I see this is chapter 1, a mystery story. Here I see an apple tree blooming, blossoms. It says apple trees have beautiful blossoms. The caption, remember a caption is like little writing that tells about the picture. John Chapman's early life is like a mystery story. We don't know much about it, but we do know that John was born on September 26, 1774 in Leominster, Massachusetts. Some people say apple trees were blooming that day, but that's silly. Apple trees don't bloom in September. So there's a funny, silly thing that people said about him. John and his family lived in a poor little house. Soon his father went off to fight England in the Revolutionary War. Before John was 2, his mother died. His grandparents may have taken care of him and his big sister Elizabeth. No one knows for sure. When his father, Nathaniel, came back from the war, he had a new wife, Lucy. By then, John was 6. So it's kind of telling us, I've got to stop and think, to understand that people's lives, people who lived long ago, we can't always be sure of all the facts of their life, right? But we know some things for sure. We know when he was born, where he was born, and that his mom died when he was little, and that later his dad came home with a new wife. And here's a poster This is a poster. It says, calling for colonists to join George Washington's army. We'll be learning more about this later, about how when our country was young, we had to fight for our independence. And his father, Johnny Appleseed's father, joined in that fight. So here is a picture of some people working, kind of doing farm work. John may have gone to live with Nathaniel and Lucy in a tiny old house in Longmeadow, Massachusetts. No one knows that for sure either. But we do know that the house soon became crowded. Nathaniel and Lucy had 10 children. Okay, so John had a big sister named Elizabeth, and then after his mom died, his dad remarried, and they had a lot more kids in the house. We also know that somehow, somewhere, John learned to read and write. He learned to love nature and to feel at home in the forests and on the water. And that is almost all we know about John until he was 23. So there's just a picture of the forest, I think, to stand for the idea that John learned to love nature. And that's why they call this whole chapter a mystery story, because we can't really be sure of very many facts until John was 23. Chapter 2, The First Trip. And here it says, Wyoming Forest in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the state north of, a couple of states north of Virginia. One November day in 1797, John set off across the mountains in Pennsylvania. I got to stop and think. So 97 from when he was born, 74, 84, 94, I'm counting by tens, 94, 95, 96, 97, 23. Hey, that connects with what they said, that we don't know for sure what happened until he was 23. So when he was 23, he set off across the mountains in Pennsylvania. He carried a sack with some food and some apple seeds in it. John's feet were bare, but his heart was happy. For a while, the sun shone down on the mountain forests. John walked almost 100 miles. Then, all at once, it began to snow. It snowed and snowed. By the time it stopped, the snow was 3 feet deep. John made camp in a safe place. He tore cloth from the bottom of his coat and tied it around his feet. He made snowshoes from the branches of beech trees. Then he traveled on. Hey, I'm remembering that from another story too. There's a picture of him with his pot, cooking something maybe to eat, wrapping his feet in his coat, some cloth torn from his coat, and here's some snowshoes that he's made to continue walking across the snow. By spring, he was near Warren, Pennsylvania. There, next to a river, John planted some apple seeds. Not many settlers had come to northwest Pennsylvania yet, but John knew that they would soon come, and when they did, they would need apple trees. Settlers cooked apples into apple butter and apple sauce. They used them to make apple cider. They traded apples for other things. So here's lots of pictures, lots of details and captions, little words, little writing to explain. So here's a picture. It says, settlers chopped down trees to build their homes in the wilderness. And we've talked about that, how settlers, they would have to cut down the trees so that they could clear the land to start farming, to start farms. The apple press, here on the right, was used to make cider. Settlers ate the apples from John Chapman's trees. And you know, it's kind of cool at this time of year in the farmers markets, you can buy apple cider, right? And also in the store. And here is another kind of picture. There's a lady peeling, a woman peeling some apples, maybe to use in cooking. And then here's a kind of a big symbol for the month of October, and showing that October is the time of year when apples, which have arrived in barrels, are all being pressed to make cider. October is next month, right? It's soon. Actually, wait, October is just in a couple of days. So, John went from one place to another, clearing land and planting his apple seeds. He built a fence of brush around each little nursery. Nursery. So, nursery is a word that can mean where babies are being taken care of, but it also means where plants are being taken care of, especially little plants, right? Baby plants. At least once a year, he checked on his nurseries. By the time settlers came, he was ready to sell or trade young apple trees. From then on, this was John's job. And after a while, people began to call him Johnny Appleseed. Clearing the land was hard work. So if you read the caption, you can see somebody and they've cut down the trees and then they're kind of digging out the rocks to get it ready to farm. The Ohio years. So we're going to stop here for today, and then tomorrow we'll continue our biography with wonderful details about John Chapman. And what I like about this is it really has pictures that show and help you get a picture in your mind of his life. And since I got to do something at the end of the book, I made a real connection between the story about the snowshoes and a picture and page in this book explaining about how he made snowshoes and was kind of almost flying across the snow, right? That's a fun connection. A connection, text to text, right? From one thing you are reading to something you've already read. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the first part of our biography, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Don't forget to wash your hands, cover your coughs and sneezes, do some reading, do some writing, help your family around the house, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.